The morning sky over Nethys was painted in shades of dying red. Hyenwu pressed his face against the cold metal of the observation deck window and watched the automated supply ship descend through the thin atmosphere. Its hull was scarred and dented from countless journeys, but it still carried the blue and silver markings of the Galactic Federation. This would be the last one. The thought hit him like a physical blow. After 300 years of regular deliveries, the Federation had finally decided to cut all ties. The message had arrived 2 days ago. It's transmitted through the quantum relay network that connected every civilized world in the galaxy. Every world except this one. Hyenwu touched the communication device on his belt. The message was still there, stored in the memory banks like a digital death sentence. He had read it so many times that he could recite every word. The Federation Council had voted. The Kalari quarantine was now permanent. No more supplies. No more communication.
Almore.
Hope, the supply ship touched down in the designated landing zone, its engines kicking up clouds of red dust. Hyenwu watched through his telescope as the automated systems began unloading crates of medical supplies, food concentrates, and replacement parts for their failing infrastructure. The ship would be gone within an hour, its crew safely sealed. Inside their protective compartments, no living being had set foot on. Nethys in over 2 centuries, Hyenwu made his way down the winding corridors of the research station. The walls were covered in the same metallic panels that had been installed when the building was first constructed. Back when the Kalari still believed they might find a cure for their condition, now the panels were stained with age and neglect, and many of the lights had burned out long ago. He passed the old laboratories where his ancestors had worked tirelessly to understand their curse. The equipment was still there, covered in dust and forgotten dreams, microscopes that had once examined alien brain tissue, computers that had run millions of simulations, testing chambers where brave volunteers had subjected themselves to painful experiments in the hope of finding a solution. All of it was useless now. The main assembly hall was filled with the soft murmur of voices. Hyenwu stepped inside and saw nearly 100 of his people gathered in the circular chamber. They sat in small groups, their pale blue skin almost glowing in the dim light. Their large, dark eyes held the same expression he had seen his entire life. Sadness, resignation, the quiet despair of a species that had given up. Su-Jin stood at the center of the hall, her aged form still commanding respect, despite her obvious frailty. She had been their leader for over 50 years, guiding them through the darkest period in Kalari history. Her white hair was braided with silver threads, and her ceremonial robes bore the ancient symbols of their people. "My children," she began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber despite its softness. "You have all heard the news. Federation has made their final decision. We are to be left alone." A young Kalari named Hyjin raised her hand. "What about the other colonies? Surely some of them will help us." Sujin shook her head slowly. "The other colonies follow Federation law. They cannot risk contamination. We are too dangerous." Word hung in the air like a poison. Dangerous. That was what they had become. Not healers. Not scholars. The peaceful mediators they had once been. Just dangerous. Hyenwu remembered the stories his grandmother had told him about the old days. The Kalari had been respected throughout the galaxy. Their ability to touch minds, to heal psychological wounds, to bring peace to warring factions, had made them invaluable. They had been invited to every major diplomatic gathering. Their wisdom had prevented countless wars. But then came the discovery. It had started with a routine medical examination. A Kalari healer named Jamin had been treating a patient from the Vorthon Empire. The procedure had gone normally, or so it seemed. The patient had been cured of his trauma and sent home. 3 days later, he had murdered his entire family before taking his own life. The investigation that followed had uncovered the horrible truth. The Kalari healing process, which involved direct mental contact, had an unexpected side effect on non-Kalari minds. The touch of a Kalari consciousness, no matter how gentle, drove other species to madness. The effect was delayed, sometimes taking days or weeks to manifest, but it was always fatal. We have perhaps 40 years before our sun dies, Sujin continued. Our population has dropped to just over 10,000. Our birth rate continues to decline. Without outside help, we will not survive. An older Kalari named Sang-ho stood up. Perhaps it is time to accept our fate. We have lived with this curse for centuries. Maybe extinction is the natural end for our kind, no, Hyeon-woo said, surprising himself with the force of his voice. All eyes turned to him as he stepped forward. Cannot give up. Our ancestors never gave up. They kept searching for a solution until the very end. And what did they find? Sang-ho asked bitterly. Nothing. We are still cursed. We are still alone. They found ways to control our abilities, Hyeon-woo replied. They developed the neural dampeners that allow us to interact with our own kind without causing harm. They created the isolation, protocols that keep us safe from each other's influence. They never stopped trying. Sujin looked at him with something that might have been pride. What do you propose, young one? Hyeon-woo took a deep breath. Continue the research. We monitor the galaxy for new species, new technologies, new possibilities. We do not simply wait to die. The Federation has abandoned us, Haijin said. Who else is there? The galaxy is vast, Hyeon-woo replied. There are species we have never encountered. Perhaps one of them will be different. Perhaps one of them will be immune to our influence. Sang-ho laughed, but there was no humor in it. Immune? Every species that has ever made contact with us has suffered the same fate. The Vorthans, the Altarians, the Crystalline Collective, even the machine intelligences. Our curse affects all forms of consciousness. Not all, Hyeon-woo said quietly. We affect each other differently than we affect other species. There must be a reason for that. There must be some form of consciousness that can resist our influence. The hall fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of the life support systems that kept their dying world. Habitable Sujin stepped closer to Hyeon-woo. You speak of hope, child. Hope is a dangerous thing for our people. It has led us to disappointment too many times. Hope is all we have left, Hyeon-woo replied. Without it, we are already dead. The old leader studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Very well. Continue your research. Monitor the communication networks. Watch for signs of new species entering our region of space. But do not expect miracles, Hyeon-woo. We are the cursed ones, are feared and forsaken. By all as the assembly dispersed, Hyeon-woo remained in the hall. He walked to the great window that looked out over the research complex. In the distance, he could see the quarantine satellites orbiting their world, their weapons trained on the surface below. They were both protection and prison, ensuring that no Kolari could leave and no other being could safely approach. But somewhere, out there in the vast darkness between the stars, there might be someone different. Someone who could look upon the Kolari without fear. Someone who could offer them a second chance. Hyeon-woo pressed his hand against the cool glass and made a silent promise. He would not give up. He would keep watching the stars, waiting for the day when someone might finally come to help them. He had no way of knowing that day was closer than he thought. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel, Harmony, and watched the stars shift around them as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ship shuddered slightly as its engines adjusted to normal space, and the familiar hum of the quantum drive faded to a whisper. Navigation, report, Minho said, settling into his command chair. Lieutenant Jong-soo checked his instruments. We have arrived at the Nethi system, Captain. All systems are normal. Beginning preliminary. Scans now. Minho nodded and looked out at the red giant star that dominated the view screen. The Harmony was a small ship by galactic standards, with a crew of only 25 humans. They were part of the 3rd Exploration Fleet, tasked with mapping the outer regions of this spiral arm. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 15 years ago, and there were still thousands of systems to explore. Anything interesting out there? Minho asked. Jong-soo frowned at his readings. Sir, I'm detecting a large artificial structure in orbit around the 4th planet. It appears to be some kind of satellite network. Can you get more details? Working. On it, sir. Jong-soo's fingers flew over his controls. Captain, these satellites are massive. They're arranged in a perfect sphere around the planet. I'm reading weapons signatures, shield generators, and what looks like a powerful communication array. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. Is it active? Yes, sir. The network is fully operational. I'm also detecting signs of life on the seed. Planet below. Cities, power sources, agricultural areas. There's definitely a civilization down there. Dr. Yoon-young, the ship's science officer, looked up from her station. Captain, I'm picking up faint distress signals from the planet. They're very weak, but they appear to be automated broadcasts. Can you decode them? I'm trying, sir. Language is unknown, but the mathematical patterns suggest it might be some kind of SOS signal. Minho stood up and walked to the center of the bridge. Something was wrong here. A planet with signs of civilization, surrounded by a defensive network, sending out distress calls. It didn't make sense. Communications. Try to raise whoever is controlling those satellites, he ordered. Ensign Taehi worked at her station 4. Several minutes before shaking her head, no response, Captain. The satellites are scanning us, but they're not responding to any of our standard greeting protocols. Suddenly, the main view screen flickered and displayed an incoming transmission. The face that appeared was clearly not human. The being had pale blue skin, large dark eyes, and delicate features that seemed almost fragile. When it spoke, the universal translator worked perfectly. Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Tae-young, of the Galactic Federation 4th Fleet. You are ordered to leave this system immediately. Not attempt to land on the planet. Not attempt further communication with the inhabitants. This is a restricted zone under Federation Emergency Protocol 7. Minho stepped forward. Admiral, this is Captain Minho of the human vessel Harmony. We are conducting a routine exploration mission. I had no knowledge that the system was restricted. The Admiral's expression hardened. Humans, I should have known. Your species has a disturbing tendency to ignore established protocols. Leave this system at once, Captain. That is a direct order. With respect, Admiral, we are not under Federation military authority. We are an independent exploration vessel. If there are people in distress on that planet, we have a duty to help. You have no idea what you are dealing with, Tae-young said, his voice tight with what might have been fear. The beings on that planet are extremely dangerous. Contact with them means death for any non-Kolari species. The quarantine has been in place for 3 centuries. It cannot be broken. Dr. Yoon-young looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting another transmission. This one is coming from the planet itself. Minho made a decision that would change everything put it through. The screen split, showing both Admiral Tae-young and a new figure. This being also had blue skin and large eyes, but there was something different about him. Where the Admiral looked stern and military, this new speaker seemed almost gentle. Please, the being said, his voice carrying a note of desperate hope. I am Hoyen-woo of the Kolari people. We have been monitoring your transmissions. Are you truly human? Yes, Minho replied. We are human. My name is Captain Minho. We received your distress signal. Hoyen-woo's eyes widened. You can hear us. You can understand us. But you are not Kolari. How is this possible? Admiral Tae-young's image flickered with anger. Captain, end this transmission immediately. You do not understand the danger. What danger? Minho demanded. What is wrong with these people? They are psychic parasites, Tae-young said bluntly. The Kolari possess powerful telepathic abilities. Any contact with them drives other species to violent madness. The effect is delayed but always fatal. Entire planets have been lost to Kolari influence. That is not true, Hoyen-woo said quietly. We do not choose to harm others. It is a curse we cannot control. Dr. Yoon-young was studying her instruments. With growing excitement, Captain, I'm detecting psychic emanations from the planet. But they're not affecting our crew. According to my readings, we should all be showing signs of mental disturbance by now. That's impossible, Admiral Tae-young said. Every species that has made contact with the Kolari has suffered the same fate. The Vorthans, the Altarians. Even artificial intelligences are not immune. Maybe humans are different? Minho suggested. Different how? Tae-young demanded. I don't know, Minho admitted. But we've been talking to Hyen-woo for several minutes now, and none of my crew are showing any signs of madness. Hyen-woo leaned forward, his face filled with something that looked like wonder. Is it possible? Could you truly be immune to our influence? There's only one way to find out, Dr. Yoon-young said. We need to make direct contact. Absolutely not, Admiral, Tae-young said. Captain, I am ordering you to leave this system. If you refuse, I will be forced to disable your ship. You would attack us for trying to help people in distress? Minho asked. I would attack you to prevent a galactic catastrophe, Tae-young replied. The Kalari nearly destroyed civilization once before. They cannot be allowed to spread their influence again. Minho looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. Dr. Yoon-young had a hopeful expression on her face. Jong-soo looked worried but determined. Tae-hee was already working on establishing a stronger communication link with the planet. Hyunwoo Minho said, How many of your people are down there? Just over 10,000, Hyunwoo replied. We are all that remains of our species. Our sun is dying, and we have no way to leave this world. The Federation has abandoned us to our fate. How long do you have? Perhaps 40 years before the star goes supernova. Minho made his decision. We're coming down to talk to you in person. Captain, no, Admiral Tae-young said. I will not allow it. You cannot stop us, Minho replied. We are in Federation space, but we are not Federation citizens. We have the right to make our own choices, even if that choice leads to your death. Even then, the Admiral's image flickered and disappeared. A moment later, Jong-soo reported that Federation ships were moving toward their position. How long do we have? Minho asked. Maybe 6 hours before they arrive, Jong-soo replied. Minho turned to Hyen-woo, whose image was still on the screen. We don't have much time. Can you meet us at the landing coordinates we're sending you? You'd risk everything for strangers? Hyen-woo asked. We would risk everything for people who need help, Minho replied. That's what humans do. The Harmony descended toward the planet Nethys. Minho couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to change history. Either they would prove that humans were immune to colliery influence, or they would become the latest victims of a 300-year-old curse. But looking at the hope in Hyen-woo's eyes, Minho knew they had to try. The landing thrusters fired, and the Harmony touched down on alien soil. For the first time in 3 centuries, non-Kalari beings were about to set foot on the quarantined world of Nethys. Prepare the landing party, Minho ordered. We're going to make history. The airlock of the Harmony opened with a soft hiss, and Captain Minho stepped onto the surface of Nethys. The red soil crunched under his boots, and the thin air carried the scent of metal and dust. Behind him, Dr. Yoon-young and Engineer Dong Hyen followed, their faces covered by breathing masks, but their eyes bright with curiosity. A small group of Kolari waited for them near the landing pad. They stood perfectly still, as if afraid that any sudden movement might break the spell that had brought these strangers to their world. Hyen-woo was among them, his pale blue skin almost glowing in the light of the dying red sun. Welcome to Nethys, Hyen-woo said, his voice carrying a mixture of wonder and fear. You are the first non-Kalari beings to stand on our world in over 300 years. Minho removed his helmet and breathed the alien air. It was thin, but breathable, with a slightly metallic taste. It's an honor to be here, he said. Though, I have to admit we're not entirely sure what we're doing. An elderly Kolari woman stepped forward. She moved with dignity despite her obvious age, and her white hair was braided with silver threads. I am Sujin, leader of the Kalari people. We are grateful for your courage, but we must ask, do you feel anything unusual? Any changes in your thoughts or emotions? Dr. Yoon-young was scanning the group with her medical instruments. I'm detecting strong psychic emanations from all of you, she said, but our brain patterns remain completely normal. There's no sign of the mental disturbance that the Admiral described. This is impossible, whispered a young Kalari woman, who had been introduced as Haijin. Every species that has ever made contact with us has suffered the same fate. The madness always comes. Maybe it takes time, Dong Hyen suggested. The Admiral said the effects were delayed. Sujin shook her head. The delay is only a few minutes at most. By now, you should be showing signs of confusion, aggression, or paranoia. Instead, you seem perfectly calm. We are calm, Minho said. In fact, being here feels almost natural, like we belong. Haiyan Wu's eyes widened. You feel welcome here, even though you know what we are? What you are is a people in need of help, Dr. Yunyang said firmly. Your abilities don't make you monsters. They make you different. The group of Kalari exchanged glances. Some looked hopeful. Others seemed afraid to believe what they were hearing. Come, Sujin said finally. Let us show you our world. If you are truly immune to our influence, then there is much we need to discuss. They walked through the research complex, past buildings that had once housed thousands of scientists and scholars. Now most of them were empty, their windows dark and their doors sealed. Few Kalari they encountered stopped and stared at the humans with expressions of amazement. This was our greatest university, Haiyan Wu explained, as they passed a massive, domed structure. Before the curse was discovered, students from across the galaxy came here to learn. We were known for our wisdom and our ability to heal minds. What happened exactly? Dr. Yunyang asked. How did you discover the effect you have on other species? Sujin's expression grew sad. It was a healer named Jamin who first noticed the pattern. He had been treating patients from other worlds for years, helping them overcome trauma and psychological wounds. Then one of his patients, a Vorthan diplomat, went home and murdered his family 3 days later. One case doesn't prove a pattern, Dong Haiyan said. No, but more cases followed, Sujin continued. Every patient that Jamin had treated over the previous year was tracked down. All of them had suffered episodes of violent madness. All of them had died by their own hand or been killed by others. They entered a large laboratory filled with sophisticated equipment. Despite the layer of dust that covered everything, the machines looked advanced even by human standards. This is where we tried to understand our curse, Haiyan Wu said. We tested our abilities on volunteers from other species. The results were always the same. Our mental touch drives other consciousness. To madness and death? Dr. Yunyang was examining one of the machines. This is incredible technology. You were studying the actual structure of consciousness itself. We had to, Sujin said. We needed to understand how our abilities worked, and why they had such a terrible effect on other minds. What did you learn? Minho asked. That consciousness is more fragile than we thought, Haiyan Wu replied. Most species have minds that operate within very specific parameters. When we make contact, we disrupt those parameters. The mind tries to adapt, but it cannot handle the strain. But human minds can handle it, Dr. Yunyang said thoughtfully. The question is why. Perhaps human consciousness is more flexible, Sujin suggested. Or perhaps you process psychic energy in a different way than other species. They moved to another section of the laboratory where dozens of brain scans were displayed on the walls. Each one showed the same pattern. Normal brain activity that gradually became chaotic after exposure to Kalari influence. These are from our test subjects, Haiyan Wu said quietly. Altarians, Vorthians, even artificial intelligences. All of them show the same progression from normal function to complete breakdown. Dr. Yunyang was studying the scans with intense interest. The pattern is consistent across all species. But I wonder if it's not the psychic energy itself that causes the damage. What do you mean? Sujin asked. Well, what if the problem is that other species can't properly process psychic input? Their minds receive the energy but don't know what to do with it. It's like trying to run water through a filter that's too small, and human minds have a bigger filter. Dong Haiyan asked. Maybe? Or maybe we process it differently. Instead of trying to absorb the energy, we let it flow through us. Hijin had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. There is something else. Something we have never told outsiders. Jin looked at her sharply. Hijin, no. They need to know, the young Kalari said. If they are truly immune, then they deserve the truth. What truth? Minho asked. Jin took a deep breath. We don't just cause madness in other species. We can also heal it. Before the curse was discovered, we were the galaxy's greatest healers. We could repair damaged minds, cure trauma, even restore sanity to those who had lost it. But that ability comes with a price, Sujin added reluctantly. The healing process requires direct mental contact. And now we know that such contact is fatal to non-Kalari. Dr. Yunyang's eyes lit up. But if humans are immune to the harmful effects, then maybe we could benefit from the healing effects. It's possible, Haiyan-Wu said slowly. But we would need to test it carefully. If we're wrong, if humans are not truly immune, then we would be responsible for more deaths. We're willing to take that risk, Minho said. Why? Sujin asked. Why would you risk your lives for strangers? Minho was quiet for a moment, looking out at the red landscape through the laboratory window. Because everyone deserves a chance, he said finally. Your people have been alone for 3 centuries. You've been treated like monsters when you're really healers. That's not right. Federation will never accept us, Haijin said. They fear us too much. Ipidong Haiyan said, but if we can prove that contact with your people is safe, at least for humans, then we can change their minds. And if we can't? Sujin asked. Then we'll find another way, Dr. Yunyang said. We'll help you relocate to a safe world. Share our technology. We'll do whatever it takes to ensure your people survive. Haiyan-Wu stepped closer to the humans. You would do this for us, even though we are cursed? You're not cursed, Minho said firmly. You're different. Sometimes different is exactly what the galaxy needs. Outside, the red sun was setting, casting long shadows across the research complex. In the distance, the lights of the Kalari city glowed softly against the darkening sky. There is something else you should know, Sujin said. Our sun is dying faster than we thought. We have perhaps 30 years left, not 40, and we don't have time to waste, Dr. Yunyang said. We need to run tests, gather data, and prove to the Federation that contact with your people is safe. The Federation ships will be here soon, Dong Haiyan reminded them. They won't give us much time, and we'll have to work fast, Minho said. Haiyan-Wu, can you gather volunteers for the testing? We need to understand exactly how your abilities work and why humans seem to be immune. I'll volunteer first, Haiyan-Wu said without hesitation. If there's a chance that my people can be free again, I'll take any risk. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, the humans and Kalari worked together to prepare for the tests. That would determine the fate of both species. For the first time in 3 centuries, Kalari dared to hope that they might not be alone forever. But high above the planet, the Federation fleet was closing in, ready to end this unprecedented contact by force if necessary. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council was unlike any that had been held in the past century. Representatives from dozens of worlds filled the massive chamber on the capital planet of Centralis. Their voices echoed off the crystal walls as they debated the crisis that had emerged in the Nethes system. Chancellor Kreenox of the Altarian Council stood at the center podium, his forearms gesturing wildly as he spoke. His voice carried the weight of authority and the sharp edge of fear. The humans have made contact with the Kalari, he announced, his words causing a ripple of shock through the assembly. This is a violation of the most sacred laws in our history. The quarantine must not be broken. Representative Veltar of the Crystalline Collective raised one of her shimmering appendages. What is the current status of the human crew? Showing signs of the madness? Unknown, Kreenox replied. Admiral Tae-Young reports that the humans appear unaffected, but this may be due to the delayed nature of Kalari influence. Or they may be immune, suggested Representative Morkill. From the aquatic worlds, some species have shown resistance to various psychic phenomena. No species has ever shown resistance to Kalari influence, Kreenox said firmly. The Vorthons were telepathic themselves, yet they still fell to the madness of the machine collective. Had no organic minds, yet even their artificial consciousness was corrupted. In the viewing gallery, news reporters from across the galaxy recorded every word. The story of human contact with the forbidden Kalari was spreading through the communication networks faster than light itself. On 1,000 worlds, beings watched. Their screens with fascination and terror. Admiral Tae-Yoon appeared on the main display via quantum link from his flagship. His expression was grim as he delivered his report. The human vessel Harmony has been on the planet's surface for 6 hours, he said. My attempts to communicate with them have been unsuccessful. They are either dead or have chosen to ignore Federation authority. How long until your fleet reaches the system? Cronox asked. 12 hours at maximum speed. I have authorization to use force if necessary. 8. In the human section of the gallery. Director Wu Jin of Earth Space Exploration Command watched the proceedings with growing concern. He had known Captain Minho for many years and trusted his judgment completely. But the Federation's fear was real and based on centuries of tragic experience. Request permission to address the Council, Wu Jin said, standing up. Chancellor Cronox looked surprised. This is highly irregular. Earth is not yet a full member of the Federation. But we are the species in question, Wu Jin replied. If humans are to be judged, we should be allowed to speak in our defense. After a brief consultation with other council members, Cronox nodded. You may address the council, but briefly. Wu Jin made his way to the speaking platform. The eyes of hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds focused on him, took a deep breath and began, Honored representatives, I understand your fear. The history of Kalari contact is indeed terrible. But humans have always believed that every species deserves a chance for redemption, even at the cost of galactic safety, Cronox demanded. We don't believe it will come to that, Wu Jin said. Captain Minho is one of our most experienced officers. If he believes the Kalari can be helped safely, then we should at least investigate the possibility. The investigation has already been done, Representative Veltar said. 3 centuries of isolation and countless scientific studies have proven that Kalari contact is fatal to all other forms of consciousness. All previously tested forms of consciousness, Wu Jin corrected. Humans are relatively new to the galaxy. Perhaps our minds work differently. And if you're wrong? Morkill asked. If your crew succumbs to the madness and somehow spreads it to other humans, we could be looking at the extinction of your entire species. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Admiral Tae Young paced the bridge. Of his flagship, his fleet of 12 warships was racing toward the Nethi system at maximum speed. Their crews prepared for the worst possible scenario. Any word from the human ship? He asked his communications officer. No, sir. They're maintaining communications silence. And the Kalari monitoring stations? Still active? No change in their behavior patterns. Tae Young studied the tactical display showing his fleet's position. Part of him hoped the humans were already dead. It would be terrible, but it would prove that the quarantine was necessary. The alternative, that humans might actually be immune to Kalari influence, was almost too dangerous to consider. His aide, Commander Ralvex, approached with a datapad. Sir, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The news of human Kalari contact has caused panic on several worlds. Some governments are demanding immediate military action. What kind of action? Complete sterilization of the Nethi system. Some are calling for the destruction of the human homeworld as well, as a precautionary measure. Tae Young felt a chill run through him. The situation was spiraling out of control faster than anyone had anticipated. Back on the council floor, the debate had grown more heated. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages, while the universal translators struggled to keep up. Order! Chancellor Cronox called, using his authority to quiet the chamber. We must make a decision. Admiral Tae Young's fleet will reach the Nethi system in less than 12 hours. What are our instructions? Representative Veltar stood up. I move that the Admiral be authorized to destroy the human vessel if it refuses to leave the system. Seconded, called Morkill. That's murder, Wu Jin protested. You would kill innocent people for trying to help others. You would prevent a potential galactic catastrophe, Cronox replied. The motion is on the floor. All in favor of authorizing military action against the human vessel? The voting began. Species after species cast their ballots, most voting in favor of the military option. The fear of Kalari influence was too strong to overcome. The motion passes, Cronox announced. Admiral Tae Young is authorized to use whatever force is necessary to maintain the quarantine. Wu Jin slumped in his seat. He had failed to convince the council, and now Minho and his crew were in mortal danger. On his flagship, Admiral Tae Young received the council's decision with mixed feelings. He understood the necessity, but the thought of destroying a ship, full of people who were only trying to help, troubled him deeply. Set course for maximum speed, he ordered, and prepare the fleet for combat operations. As his ships raced through space toward the Nethys system, Taeyong couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to make a terrible mistake. But orders were orders, and the safety of the galaxy was more important than the lives of a few explorers. In the Nethys system, Captain Minho and his crew continued their work with the Kaleri, unaware that a fleet of warships was bearing down on them with orders to destroy their ship. The clock was ticking, and soon they would have to make a choice between following Federation law and standing by their new allies. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just the fate of the Kalari, but the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. And somewhere in the research labs of Nethys, Dr. Yoon Young was making a discovery that would change everything. Dr. Yoon Young stared at the readings on her scanner and felt her heart race with excitement. Now she was standing in the main laboratory of the Kalari research facility, surrounded by equipment that was analyzing the most important discovery in galactic history. Captain, she called over her communicator. You need to see this immediately. Minho and Donghain arrived within minutes, followed by Haiyan Wu and Sujin. The group gathered around Yoon Young's workstation where multiple screens displayed brain scans and energy readings. What have you found? Minho asked. Something incredible, Yoon Young replied, her voice filled with wonder. I've been studying the interaction between human and Kaleri consciousness, and the results are amazing. She pointed to one of the displays, showing brain activity patterns. This is a scan of my brain during contact with Haiyan Wu. Look at these readings. The scan showed unusual activity in several areas of the human brain, but the patterns were stable and controlled. Now look at this, Yoon Young continued, switching to another display. This is a Vorthan brain scan from the original Kaleri research. See the difference? The Vorthan scan showed chaotic, destructive patterns that clearly indicated severe mental damage. The Vorthan brain is trying to process Kaleri's psychic energy but failing, Yoon Young explained. It's like trying to pour an ocean through a small pipe. The pressure destroys the pipe. And human brains? Sujin asked. Human brains don't try to contain the energy. We let it flow through us. It's like the difference between a solid wall and a screen door. The wall gets destroyed by the pressure, but the screen door lets everything pass through safely. Haiyan Wu studied the scans with growing excitement. Are you saying that humans can safely interact with us indefinitely? More than that, Yoon Young said. I think humans can actually help other species develop the same resistance. She pulled up another set of readings. Been working with a volunteer from Admiral Taeyong's crew, an Altarian named Vekmel who agreed to participate in a controlled experiment. You contacted the Federation fleet? Minho asked in surprise. Vekmel contacted us, Yoon Young replied. He's a scientist, and he was curious about our claims. We've been conducting the experiment remotely, with me serving as an intermediary. The scan showed an Altarian brain that was successfully processing Kaleri psychic energy without showing signs of damage. How is this possible? Sujin asked. I believe it's because I'm acting as a filter, Yoon Young explained. The Kaleri energy passes through my consciousness first, where it's somehow modified to be compatible with other species. Do you mean humans could serve as translators between Kaleri and other species? Donghain asked. Exactly. We could be the bridge that allows the Kaleri to rejoin galactic society. The implications were staggering. For the first time in 3 centuries, there was a real possibility that the Kaleri could interact safely with other species, but their celebration was interrupted by an urgent message from the Harmony. Lieutenant Jiangsu's voice crackled over the communicator. Captain, we have multiple ships approaching the system. Federation warships, sir. 12 vessels on an intercept course. Minho felt his stomach drop. How long do we have? Ours. Until they arrive, sir? Sujin looked at the human captain with sad understanding. You should leave now. Take your people and go home. You've given us more hope than we've had in centuries, but we won't let you die for us. We're not leaving. Minho said firmly. Captain Donghain said quietly. 12 Federation warships could destroy the Harmony without even slowing down. We have to think about our crew. I am thinking about our crew, Minho replied. I'm also thinking about 10,000 Kalari, who will die if we abandon them now. Hygiene had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. There might be another way. Captain, how many humans are on your ship? 25 crew members. And how many ships would it take to evacuate our people? Minho did some quick calculations. With our current transport capacity, we'd need at least 50 ships to evacuate everyone safely. Then we need to call for more ships, Hyunwoo said. Human ships. The nearest human colony is 3 days away, Dong Haen pointed out. The Federation fleet will be here in 4 hours. Sujin walked to the window and looked out at the red sky. Perhaps it's time to accept our fate. We have lived in isolation for 300 years. Maybe death is preferable to continuing this. Existence. No, Yoon said firmly. We can prove to the Federation that contact is safe. Vekmal is the evidence we need. One successful test is not enough to convince them, Sujin replied. They're too afraid. Minho activated his communicator. All hands, this is the captain. Report to the main meeting room immediately. 20 minutes later, the entire crew of the Harmony was gathered in the ship's small conference room. Stood at the front, his expression serious. I'm going to be direct, he said. We have a choice to make. The Federation has sent a fleet to force us to leave this system. If we stay, we'll likely be destroyed. If we leave, 10,000 innocent people will die when their sun explodes. The room was silent as the crew absorbed this information. Already made my choice, Minho continued. I'm staying. But I won't order any of you to die with me. Anyone who wants to leave can take the shuttle and head for human space. Engineer Tujin was the first to speak. Captain, if we stay, what are our chances of success? Honestly, it's very small. But Dr. Yoon has made a breakthrough that could change everything. If we can demonstrate safe contact between Kalari and other species, we might be able to convince the Federation to call off the attack. And if we can't, asked Navigation Officer Zhang Su, then we make our stand here. We protect these people for as long as we can. The crew exchanged glances. They were outnumbered and outgunned, facing impossible odds. But they were also human, and humans had a reputation for doing impossible things. I'm staying, Zhang Su said. 2. Added Communications Officer Tae-Dashi. One by one, every member of the crew voiced their decision to remain. Minho felt a surge of pride in his people. Then it settled. Make our stand here. Back in the laboratory, Dr. Yoon was working frantically to prepare for what might be their only chance to prove the safety of human Kalari contact. She had contacted Vekmal on Admiral Taeyon's flagship and convinced him to share his test results with the fleet commander. Admiral Vekmal said over the quantum communicator, I've been in contact with Kalari consciousness for over an hour through the human intermediary. I show no signs of mental disturbance. Admiral Taeyong looked at the brain scans his science officer had provided. The readings were indeed normal, but he remained skeptical. One test is not conclusive, he said. We need more data, and give us time to gather it. Minho's voice cut in as he joined the communication. Admiral, we're not asking you to abandon the quarantine completely. Just give us a chance to prove that safe contact is possible. My orders are clear, Captain. You will leave the system or be destroyed. Then you'll have to destroy us, Minho replied calmly. Because we're not leaving. The communication channel fell silent. On his flagship, Admiral Taeyong stared at the tactical display showing the human ship on the planet below. Such a small vessel crewed by beings who were willing to die for strangers. Sir, his aide commander Ralvek said quietly, the fleet is in position, awaiting your orders. Taeyong closed his eyes. In a few hours he would either be responsible for the destruction of an innocent crew, or he would be defying direct orders from the Federation Council. The choice was his to make. And the fate of 2 species hung in the balance. On the planet below, humans and Kalari worked together in desperate preparation for the confrontation to come. They had hope, courage, and a revolutionary discovery that could change the galaxy forever. But hope might not be enough to stop 12 warships armed with weapons that could crack planets. The Federation fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nethi system, like a wall of metal and fire. 12 massive warships arranged themselves in battle formation, their weapons powered and targeting systems locked onto. The small human vessel on the planet below, Admiral Tae Young, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution, and felt the weight of command pressing down on him like a physical force. His orders were clear: remove the humans from the quarantine system by any means necessary. But the conversations with Vecmal and the brain scan data had planted seeds of doubt in his mind. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "the human vessel is hailing us. Put them through." Captain Minho's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Tae-young could see both human and Kaleri figures working together in what appeared to be a laboratory setting. "Admiral, I'm requesting 1 hour to demonstrate something that will change your understanding of the Kaleri situation," Minho said. "You are in violation of Federation law, Captain. You have 30 seconds to begin evacuation procedures, or I will open fire." "Then fire," Minho replied calmly. "But know that you'll be destroying the greatest scientific discovery in galactic history." Tae-young hesitated. Something in the human captain's voice, a certainty that went beyond mere bravery, made him pause. "Explain." Dr. Yoon-young stepped into view beside Minho. "Admiral, we can prove that safe contact between Kalari and other species is possible. Your own science officer, Vecmal, has already participated in successful tests." "Vecmal volunteered against direct orders," Tae-young said. "His actions do not represent official Federation policy. But his results represent hope," Yoon-young continued. "For 3 centuries, we've assumed that Kaleri contact was universally fatal. We were wrong." On the Retribution's bridge, Science Officer Vecmal approached Admiral Tae-young. "Sir, permission to speak?" Tae-young nodded reluctantly. "Admiral, I've been in direct contact with Kaleri consciousness for over 6 hours now. My brain scans show no abnormalities. The human intermediary process works. One successful case does not prove universal safety," Tae-young replied. "Then let us provide more cases," Minho said from the screen. "Give us 1 hour to demonstrate the process with multiple species." Tae-young looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him carefully, waiting for orders. In the tactical display, he could see the small human ship nestled against the Kaleri research facility, like a child seeking protection from a parent. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "all systems are ready. We can destroy the target with a single shot." The Admiral closed his eyes and thought about the oath he had taken when he first put on a Federation uniform: to protect and serve all sentient life in the galaxy. But which was more important, protecting life or protecting the law? "Stand down weapons," he ordered. "Sir," his first officer asked in surprise. "I said stand down weapons. Position, but do not target the surface." On the planet below, Minho felt a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Admiral. You have 1 hour, Captain. Use it wisely." Oh, the next hour was the most intense of Dr. Yoon-young's life. Working with Kaleri scientists and volunteers from the Federation fleet, she demonstrated the intermediary process with 5 different species: Altarians, Vorothons, crystalline beings, even an artificial intelligence from the Machine Collective. In each case, the results were the same: successful contact with no harmful effects. Admiral Tae-young watched the demonstrations from his ship, his skepticism gradually giving way to amazement. The brain scans were undeniable. The test subjects remained completely normal even after extended contact with Kaleri consciousness. "How is this possible?" he asked Dr. Yoon-young during one of the test breaks. "Human consciousness appears to act as a natural filter for psychic energy," she explained. "We can process Kaleri thoughts and emotions, then transmit them in a form that other species can safely receive. And this works for all humans?" "We believe so. We've tested it with our entire crew, and the results are consistent." Sujin stepped into the communication range. "Admiral, my people have lived in shame and isolation for 3 centuries. We never wanted to harm anyone. If there's a chance for us to rejoin the galaxy, to use our abilities to help instead of hurt, we beg you to consider it." Tae-young studied the elderly Kaleri leader. Her dignity and obvious pain touched something in him that military training had tried to bury. "The Federation Council will never approve this," he said. "They're too afraid." "Then we'll prove it to them step by step," Minho suggested. "We'll start with small groups, limited contact under controlled conditions, build trust gradually. And in the meantime," Tae-young asked, "your son is dying. The Kaleri need to be relocated." "We have a proposal for that too," Dr. Yoon-young said. "The human government has agreed to offer the Kaleri sanctuary in our space. A new world where they can rebuild while we work together to develop the contact protocols." Tae-young was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his fleet communications. "Ships, this is Admiral Tae-young. Stand down from combat alert. We will be escorting the human vessel and Kaleri evacuation ships to safety." "Sir," his first officer protested, "those are not our orders." "Our orders are to protect galactic civilization," Tae-young replied. "Believe that helping these people will do more to protect civilization than destroying them." The evacuation of Nethys took 3 weeks. Human transport ships arrived from colonies throughout their space. Working alongside Federation vessels that Admiral Tae-young had quietly recruited to the cause, the Kaleri population of 10,000 was relocated to a beautiful world that the humans had designated as Haven. The red giant star of Nethys went supernova just days after the last evacuation ship cleared the system. The timing seemed like a miracle, but Hyeonwoo knew better. It was human compassion that had made their survival possible. 6 months later, the first joint conference between humans, Kalaria, and Federation representatives was held on the neutral world of Centralus. The hall that had once echoed with fear and condemnation now buzzed with scientific excitement and diplomatic possibility. Dr. Yoon-young presented her research to delegates from across the galaxy. The intermediary process had been refined and tested with hundreds of volunteers. The success rate was 100%. "The implications go far beyond simple communication," she explained to the assembled representatives. "Kaleri healing abilities, channeled through human intermediaries, could revolutionize treatment of mental illness and psychological trauma throughout the galaxy." Chancellor Krenox, who had led the opposition to Kaleri contact, listened with growing amazement. "Are you suggesting that the Kaleri could return to their role as healers?" "We're suggesting something even better," Hyeonwoo said, stepping up. "To address the assembly for the first time in his life as a free being, we're suggesting a partnership. Humans and Kaleri working together, combining our abilities to help others in ways that neither species could achieve alone." The vote to officially recognize Kaleri rights and establish diplomatic relations was not unanimous, but it passed by a comfortable margin. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Kaleri were no longer outcasts. Admiral Tae-young, who had been promoted to Federation Ambassador for Psychic Species Relations, watched the proceedings with satisfaction. His decision to disobey orders had been controversial, but the results spoke for themselves. Captain Minho, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the Kaleri people, stood with Sujin as they watched the signing of the historic agreement. The old Kaleri leader had tears in her large dark eyes. "Your people saved us," she said quietly. "Not just from death, but from despair." "Your people saved us too," Minho replied. "You reminded us that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do." On the world of Haven, Kaleri children played in gardens that bloomed under the light of a healthy yellow sun. For the first time in generations, they would grow up knowing that they were not monsters. They were healers, teachers, and valued members of galactic society. Haijin, while studying at the Joint Human Kaleri Research Institute, worked alongside Dr. Yoon-young to develop new applications for their combined abilities. I had successfully treated veterans suffering from war trauma, helped accident victims recover from brain injuries, and even assisted in first contact situations with newly discovered species. The galaxy had learned an important lesson, that fear, well-founded, should never overcome compassion. The humans had proven that sometimes the greatest strength is the willingness to extend a hand to those everyone else has abandoned, and in the vast darkness between the stars, other isolated peoples watched the news broadcasts with growing hope. If the feared and forsaken Kaleri could find redemption, perhaps there was hope for them as well. The universe had become a little bit kinder, one act of courage at a time.